Hey, everybody, it's Josh here, and I just wanted to take a quick minute before the show gets started to just tell everyone that's listening, thank you. Any way, in any manner in which you consume this, whether it's downloading, listening on YouTube, liking our Instagram posts, following us on there, going to the website and clicking it, however that mechanism is that you choose to consume the content that we produce, I just wanted to say thanks. And on behalf of myself, obviously, and everyone here at Game Rage, we all thank you, because knowing that you're out there and you're listening, and if we can just entertain one person, then really that makes all the blood, sweat, tears, everything we put into this worth it. And I know I'm sounding like a martyr right now, but I just wanted to show our appreciation, I suppose. And also to, just remind everyone to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Game Rage Magazine, and to follow us on Twitter and X or /X at Game Rage Mag, and to also visit our website, www.gameragemagazine.com. And again, thank you from everyone here and myself at Game Rage. From the bottom of our hearts, we thank you for listening.
So you want to listen to a pretty all-right podcast about wrestling, do ya?
Well, the natural lad, Jet Swag, has said time and time again that there's only one podcast that's the most decent and the most all-rightest in the industry today.
And that's it's the Game Rage Wrasslin Podcast.
There's a charm to it.
There is a charm to it. Anyways, all right. Well, welcome here to the episode 1, the inaugural. I was going to get to that. The inaugural episode 1 Game Rage Wrasslin Podcast redo, because we did a whole long fucking form introduction and it fucking got lost in the archives. It's fucking in the ether. It's gone, never to be recovered. So here we are, like 6 weeks fucking later. Maybe longer than that. Maybe like 10 weeks later, trying to fucking just do it again. So we're just going to do our best to just talk about ourselves. And this introduction episode is just to get you to have an idea about who we are in terms of what we like in wrestling and our fandom and how we kind of became wrestling fans. So anyways, my name is Josh, I guess because you fucking wouldn't know if you've listened to this the first fucking time. So my name is Josh. I'm one of the hosts here, and I'm here along with Frank.
Hello.
And also here with Adam.
Howdy.
And yeah, so let's just start with how you got started in watching wrestling. Adam, go right ahead. Or Frank, you want to go?
It was the popular thing at my school, and all my friends were into it, so I decided to start watching it, and I got hooked.
Okay, Adam.
Cousins, I think. Cousins would always usually have either like the pay-per-views or Monday Night Raw was like the thing to watch, and I don't remember when it happened, but one thing that is deeply embedded in my mind for wrestling, like from a very young age, is like Mankind being thrown over
The cage,
like, I know, we're kind of rehashing this, but like that shit just stands out to me as like one of the greatest moments.
Iconic,
yeah. So,
no, yeah. Well, I mean, we're rehashing it amongst ourselves, but I mean, other people haven't heard this yet. So, for me, it's pretty much the exact opposite of both of you, as we've talked about. I didn't know anybody who knew wrestling. I didn't know anyone when I first started getting into it. I was like 5. Basically, I think I saw a commercial for Monday Night Raw and was, what's this? And ended up watching, started watching it in the early 90s when it first kind of came out. And it slowly progressed over there to watching WCW, to watching NWA, ECW, to watching multiple different types of wrestling, and to New Japan, to Lucha Libre, all kinds of stuff. And then essentially I didn't tell anybody. I every kid that I ever saw previously that was a wrestling fan got made fun of, and they were basically ridiculed, and they were, oh, you watch that wrestling, blah blah blah, and so I just kept it to myself and enjoyed it alone with no one. And when I was in third grade, that's when I met the first people that I had essentially become friends with because of wrestling. They were the first. I mean, Frank is an example of a friend that essentially I became friends with initially because of wrestling, because it was just something in passing that we just happened to do or see, and then that's how it got started. So that's kind of how it got started with these guys, and they were real big into. They had a lot of cousins from the Midwest and all over the place, and so they would trade tapes, and so we would trade. Fucking leave him alone, man. He's getting tangled up.
Trying to do.
What is this tangle on, dick?
There we go. All right. So we would trade tapes and stuff, and we would basically just kind of. So I got started to see ECW and all that type of stuff. So I just got fucking distracted. But anyway, so that's kind of how I got started into watching wrestling. And what did you guys have a favorite time period of what you liked the best of wrestling? Frank?
I guess the Ruthless Aggression era.
Ruthless Aggression, which was the
Aggression.
2002-ish to like 2008 maybe.
Yeah.
That was a good time.
I'd probably say somewhere similar along the lines, because as much as I remember being a young child watching wrestling, and like I remember the 90s and stuff, but like there's just some things like I have lapses in memory in.
Yeah.
But like Ruthless Aggression is something that I definitely remember kind of.
They were playing in their piss, so there's a shit ton of it. They were all taking turns in there.
Whatever.
So he went all over in it, so that's why he's trying to get it off of him.
I don't believe that, because it's undisturbed right there. It's just a pile. It would be all everywhere if they were rolling in it.
I was literally watching.
I'm telling you, that's not what happened. So, anyways, go ahead, Adam.
So, anyways, the Ruthless Aggression period is probably one that I knew at pretty good length, but I do remember some of the stuff from the 90s, but it's like really like the hallmark stuff that you would remember as a fan. But
right.
In great detail, what I know, all the storylines from the 90s, not probably not. So,
right.
Yeah.
So I guess for me, it would probably be it's got to be that Attitude Era, man. That 97 to 2000-ish era, and for me it was because I also watched WCW, so I wasn't just a WWF viewer. So those were those companies were both hot at that time, and they had the best storylines going on, and I just fucking loved it. I do love a close second, and maybe even possibly tied, is that
ECW. No, just kidding.
No, that Ruthless Aggression era of WWE, because I mean I love Evolution, man.
Evolution is a mystery.
Oh yeah, man. That I love that fucking theme song.
So good, dude.
The group was just so fucking good, man. They worked as heels just so fucking perfectly together, and really it introduced Batista and Randy Orton, two greats that they went to become greatness on their own, outside of Evolution. And it was cool to see Flair and Triple H, doing that and kind of taking those guys under their wing, metaphorically or whatever you want to call it. And even if it is just storyline, those dudes still got to learn and hang out with them and be around two basically legends, living legends.
Ironically, Batista being older than Triple H, so like him kind of being taken under the wing is such a weird situation.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. But I love that time period too. So those but the NWO, and then
it wasn't even just the main event stuff. It was just shit from top to bottom. It was like the cruiserweight. It was cruiserweight matches, like the cruiserweight matches, like Tajiri, fucking Jamie Noble. Rey Mysterio for a long time was kind of like a hallmark of the cruiserweight division. Fucking Spike Dudley.
Yep. Fucking Billy Kidman. Fucking.
But even like the mid card stuff, like Matt Hardy. Fucking Matt Hardy. Like Edge was Chris Jericho for like a long time was in that IC title scene. Fucking even the U.S. title stuff was interesting, dude. When Kurt Angle was like U.S. champion, and he was the person that vetted John Cena, like for like the open challenge that he would do for like the U.S. title. Dude, from top to bottom, like it was just fucking stellar. Like great programming from top to bottom. And I can't say that's the case for Raw or SmackDown for both of them, like now, but like,
definitely not.
It's kind of like the spotty, it's spotty,
and it's. I think it's kind of.
I'm not trying to turn this into one of those. Oh, I grew up in the fucking ruthless and like attitude era, so I know better about wrestling. That's not it. Like, I think there's better things that are done now than
back then. And I agree. I do think that things have evolved, and a lot of the things that have evolved for the better, as opposed to them evolving for the worse. But I'm not, and by no means am I trying to say that this was the best definitive era or whatever. This is just my fucking opinion.
Yeah.
And I mean, do you look back at it with rose-colored glasses? I mean, I went back, whatever, fucking a month or two ago when I had the stupid COVID and was like quarantining myself. I literally, for some reason, I don't know why, I just started watching old fucking videos or old shit on the network or old Peacock, I guess now.
Yeah.
I just started watching old Raws on there for some reason and just going through it just at the beginnings of when the DX thing was first starting and whatnot. And man, some of that shit was bad, and you go back.
It was AIDS.
Yeah, it was deadly, dude. It was some of it was real garbage, and a lot of it didn't even really start to get good until like you could see it starting to form, and you're just kind of like, okay. Back when I was a kid, man, I thought, oh man, this is so cool. Oh man, they said ass and fuck. Oh man, this is awesome. But just watching it, it's kind of
like the. What was it? Shawn Michaels handing the European title to Triple H. Like, he just lied. Was it like Triple H running between the ropes back and forth?
Yeah, like an asshole, and then just literally just laying on top of him, and then counting the three. And then when I saw that originally, I was like, holy shit, they got Sargent. They got that motherfucker. They beat him. They fucking beat him in his own game. He thought he was fucking them, and then they fucking took off their fucking pants and were wearing fucking thongs or whatever at the thing to piss him off even harder. But I just thought, oh man, they got him. Yeah, fuck that guy. Yeah, they got him good. What a piece of shit. And then now watching it back, it's just like, oh man, that was kind of weak. They could have done something better than that.
But
at the time though, that was good.
Yeah.
And obviously seeing shit that's happened since then, that, oh man, they could have done this or they could have done something better like this, like that. Looking at it back with hindsight, I guess, you can see that. But some of the just generally, just some of the promos were just terrible.
Weren't you shitting on Bret Hart? Like,
oh yeah, man. I mean,
not to say that Bret Hart isn't a great in-ring wrestler.
Oh yeah,
but you were saying that, like the promos were AIDS.
Yeah, man. I used to think that Bret Hart was good. I used to think he was good at everything, and not to say that he isn't a good wrestler, because he is good in the ring, but man, he just fucking would ramble, and they would all, him and the whole Hart Foundation would literally just look at each other as if fucking they didn't know what they were talking about. They were just and this and then that and fuck that guy too, and then they'd just look around at each other and, here, you talk, and then they'd go, and Owen Hart would literally say the same thing 15 times in a row and just fucking keep repeating himself, and then literally wait for someone to take the microphone from him. He's like, guys, I don't know what else to say, so I'm going to keep saying how Stone Cold is a cripple, and he's a cripple, and I crippled him, and he's a cripple. I'm a crippler. I cripple people. I do crippling things. And he's like literally looking around like, hey, do one of you guys want to grab this microphone from me? Because I am just standing here. I'm out of ideas, and a lot of it was real bad. And it was.
But would you say like the one moment that he had, the Montreal screw job, because he did kind of cut, like, he did shoot on Vince McMahon in like the WWE, saying like, oh, you guys fucked me over. Like you said I wouldn't fucking lose the title in my home show, whatever. And then it was kind of like convincing, and it looked like it came from the heart, and I'm like, there's a moment where he was kind of had a hallmark moment for a promo or whatever. If it was in fact like it wasn't just him fucking attacking Vince McMahon or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. So he had his moments. I mean, it's not like it was all bad. But in general, speaking from Monday Night Raw to Monday Night Raw, I mean, they were generally not that great. And a lot of the promos that happened were generally not that good. I mean, some of them were fucking hilarious. I mean, there is an episode that, I mean, it's in the past for us, but it's in the future for you listening that we do talk about some of those. And they're fucking, some of them are hilarious. And I don't know if they necessarily quote unquote hold up, if that's the right term, because some of them are, you're just kind of, oh, well, hold on, you couldn't get away with this today, that's for sure. But they are funny as shit.
Yeah, there was one. What's that guy's name? That would do the Ho Train.
Oh, the Godfather.
The Godfather. So I don't know what the context was because the Undertaker was out in the ring with him, and then like Godfather is telling him, he's like, everybody knows that he's pointing at fucking Undertaker. He's like, that you love hoes. And like, I think it was to try to break him in the fucking ring, like, to corpse or whatever. But I don't, Undertaker being the professional that he is, didn't collapse. Didn't crack. But I don't know what the context of why they were both in the fucking ring was. But yeah, it was just a interesting thing.
That's funny. So, favorite? What's your guys' favorite wrestlers over the years?
Well, I think I hate to say it, but I think Frank and I
would agree on
one or two top wrestlers for ourselves. But speaking for myself as somebody that grew up in the Ruthless Aggression area, and I think it probably would have been so much richer if I was familiar with like WCW to see Eddie Guerrero coming up through the ranks and like tag teaming with like Chris Jericho or wrestling against like Rey Mysterio and shit and all that shit. Like it would have been so much more rewarding to know all that information in hindsight. But him winning like the WWE Championship at No Way Out, especially like a pay-per-view like that, it feels like a throwaway.
Yeah.
When you don't see like title change. Well, not that you would expect a title change within like those pay-per-views between the big four.
Right.
But it happened and it was like, oh, holy shit! Like this is where like you knew wrestling wasn't real, right?
Right, yeah.
But for me, like that was kind of a moment where like, oh shit, like we're finally getting what I want, what I wanted to see. I'm like, oh, I'm invested now. Like yeah.
And what's funny about that too is it was the one right before WrestleMania, and so you would think that going into WrestleMania, you've got this champion. He's, your strong champion. You're going to keep him through, and then you're going to drop the title at WrestleMania. But then to take the title off of him in a surprise fashion right before WrestleMania, I mean, that was...
Not even giving a rematch.
Yeah.
And he instantly went into a feud with Goldberg after that.
Yeah, that's true.
That didn't really...
go anywhere.
It didn't go anywhere, and it wasn't cool. But it was cool for, like, Brock Lesnar to... have like this to have that moment where it seemed like insurmountable odds for Eddie Guerrero to, because Brock Lesnar was sold as the next big thing, and I don't know if he was the beast at that point because he was pushed at that, but he was a very threatening figure in the WWE. And it just looked like one of those David versus Goliath matches, and like, oh, this is just a pay-per-view. It was like a throwaway moment, like Eddie Guerrero is not going to win, and then he fucking won. It was like, oh, holy shit, now. And the WrestleMania 20 comes along, and you're like, oh, fuck, well, that match was good. Kurt Angle versus fucking Eddie Guerrero is just going to be just as awesome.
Right, yeah.
It was.
Yeah, and it was, yeah. And to see Eddie Guerrero, I mean, I got to watch him, when he was in WCW. And yeah, some of the fucking matches he had there with, Ultimo Dragon and fucking Psychosis and fucking La Parka and shit, man. Some of those.
He was a cruiserweight in WCW, right?
Yeah, he was just a straight up cruiserweight. Yeah. He did not get to do anything else. I mean, I think he might have been a tag team wrestler for a little bit too, but yeah, he didn't wrestle for any kind of like heavyweight title. He was not anywhere considered near.
But in spite of his size, because he got bigger like as the years went on.
Oh yeah, you can definitely
he became a heavyweight in the WWE. Yeah. Like, literally, like if weight class really were a thing, he actually did upclass himself. But I mean, remember when freaking Jamie Noble and they were able to fight for the world heavyweight title? So that term no longer meant.
It didn't mean anything. Yeah, but I don't know, man. Like the reason that I liked Eddie Guerrero so much is not just because he's Mexican or whatever, and the fact that oh shit.
Oh, good.
All right. Well, hopefully we don't run out of juice here. The other reason that I liked Eddie Guerrero in general was the fact that he kind of he was able to adapt to all styles of wrestling. And yeah, dude, he was just complimentary to everybody. You can plug and play that dude everywhere. Like, just versatile wrestler. He can do the luchador stuff, but he could also do like the power, like the power stuff.
Yeah.
Power and technical.
Yeah. So that's to me why but Chris Benoit, I mean, I know all that shit about him killing his family, but like I'm gonna put that aside for the sake of we're talking about wrestling itself. I'm like, yes, what he did was just horrendous and that's fucked up, and like we all know that. But Chris Benoit was also somebody that I really enjoyed watching wrestling.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that too. And yes, I to preface this all, we obviously what he did was bad. It was fucked up. And
we're not defending him. We're just like
definitely not. Yeah. I just don't know. I get what WWE was doing at the time when they were just trying to basically delete him from fucking history because, oh man, we don't want this bad fucking negativity against us.
Yeah.
But I think because I mean they would literally delete off of like the DVDs and shit and off of any digital thing. They would delete whole matches with his ass. Like you couldn't fucking find him anywhere for a while.
Yeah.
Now I think it's been so long. They're back on there. They haven't really edited them out like that.
Yeah.
Just because I mean unfortunately regardless of what happened, I mean he was a good wrestler. I mean he did contribute a lot. I feel like to wrestling in general.
Yeah.
And obviously, me and Frank, one of our favorite pay-per-views of all time. I mean, WrestleMania 20.
Yeah,
them two being champions at the same time and coming from where they came from, man, that shit was just fucking.
I'll also add that this isn't even a title match, but there's a match between Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit, and I don't know if they were like going at it because they were trying to outdo one another, like literally, like they were gonna end up fist fighting.
Yeah.
But there's a match. It's just a regular fucking match between Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit, and it's fucking good. Like you got to look it up. I don't remember which one. Yeah,
what I'm saying, it's the two at the time the two most technical wrestlers going against each other. So it had to be good.
Yeah,
that's the thing about technical and lucha libre style wrestling. When two people who are good at it go against each other, it's fucking magic. But when two power wrestlers go at it, it's like
it's boring. It's like Neanderthals, beating each other.
If you even notice, that kind of goes across the media form. Like in MMA and boxing, it's more about the welterweights and stuff like that people enjoy watching more.
The acrobat, like the
fast movers, and like Muhammad. Like Muhammad Ali was a heavyweight, but he fought like
he moved.
Yeah, and like. I mean, the last time I see people massively interested in a heavyweight fight involved Mike Tyson. And again, that fool didn't move like a heavyweight. But like I said, like I've also noticed that in that same aspect of wrestling, power versus power wrestling is boring.
It's boring, yeah. Like, dude, I wonder because I haven't seen WrestleMania. Is it 3? That's Andre the Giant versus Hogan, or is it 1?
No, it's 3.
Okay. I know that is like a pivotal moment in wrestling history because it's just like a David and Goliath moment.
Right, yeah.
And it's cool because like it's influenced pop culture in general. Like the two staring at each other, like Andre the Giant towering over Hulk Hogan looking down, and then Hulk Hogan looking up. Like, because something I enjoy is Street Fighter. And in the third iteration of the game, the third game, or the third iteration of the franchise, there's these two characters, one being Hugo, who is an homage to Andre the Giant. Mm-hmm. And when they made the new protagonist for Street Fighter, Alex, he's based on Hulk Hogan. Mm-hmm. And within like the match itself, if you were playing as either Hugo or Alex, when you encountered the other character, they had that moment in
that's
like
cool.
that WrestleMania 3 moment.
Yeah.
But as for the match itself, like, have you seen it? And like, what'd you think
watched
about
it? Yeah, I watched it. So personally,
is it boring?
Yeah, okay, objectively, yes. If you didn't, let's say you didn't know who either guy was, it's fucking boring. However, the only way that power versus power works is when you have a spectacle behind it.
Yeah.
So Andre the Giant, is a spectacle, and Hulk Hogan is also, even at the time, was a spectacle, and the two had never faced before, so no one knew what was going to happen. And so watching them be kind of slow and fucking lumbering, it was a very much Andre does some offense, everybody boos, then Hogan does some offense, and then everybody's like, oh fuck yeah, and then but Andre does some. So it was very back and forth, like it's like watching a game of slow pong.
The only thing that I remember that was like a real highlight is because of the fact that
when Hogan
the scoop slam, he scoop slammed Andre the Giant, and it was like, oh holy shit, he fucking lifted the fat motherfucker. Well, not the fat motherfucker,
right? The big motherfucker.
The big motherfucker, yeah.
And when that was the moment, that's the iconic moment that's in everything, right? And so that's the only moment of the match, or one of the moments of the match that's exciting, because watching it objectively, it's boring. But if you had the hype going into it and everything, okay, like look at The Rock and Hogan for WrestleMania 18, right? That match, if you really look at it, it's not that great technically.
Between who?
Between Hogan and The Rock at WrestleMania 18. From a technical standpoint,
it was whatever.
It's not that great.
I think I see your point, because, well, I'll let you go ahead.
In terms of the technical wrestling itself, right? Hogan, he's old.
His moveset is boring as fuck, dude.
Right. Well, he's old. He's limited. He's got injuries.
Big boot. Fucking leg drops.
Leg drop. Doing the fucking go to the ear to see what everybody's saying. Right. Okay. But it was the spectacle of, we've never seen The Rock versus Hogan, the two biggest fucking stars of their era. We've never seen them wrestle each other. And granted, The Rock arguably was in his prime during this, and Hogan was definitely not. And The Rock kind of wrestled around Hogan. However, it was very slow. It was almost reminiscent of the Andre and Hogan match, except with the major difference being the hype behind it. And it was heavy. That match was all hype, and the match was amazing.
The storytelling,
because of the storytelling of how they told the story during the match. The wrestling moves themselves, they did like 7 moves, garbage. Okay, if you really look at it. But that's not what that match was meant to be. That match was not meant to be a technical masterpiece of a match. It was meant to be a spectacle of these two giants of the industry, these icons or whatever. It was, I think the tagline was icon versus icon, right?
Yeah.
That these two icons going against each other, and the way they did it, the audience was the audience made the fucking match, to be honest with you. If the audience wasn't into it, it probably wouldn't have been I wouldn't remember it, or it wouldn't have been as good. But because the audience was so fucking into it, and every time somebody, because it was literally split 50-50. It was some from The Rock, some were for Hogan. And when Hogan would do some moves, you get that some kind of whatever, boos and some yays, and then boos and then yays. And then eventually one started to take over the other, where Hogan started to get more cheers than The Rock, and then The Rock kind of looks around and goes like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And him playing into that, though, it was all part of the fucking spectacle of it.
Yeah, so was that planned? Like, if it was...
You can never plan around the audience.
I don't think that was planned.
Because like Hogan he basically went face within the match.
That was planned, but like the audience accepting Hogan before that moment was not planned. Like, you can't plan around the audience, because we saw what happened with Roman Reigns when they first tried to push him.
Yeah.
Even using The Rock, and that did nothing. So you can't predict the audience. You can only create a scenario and hope that the audience buys it.
Yeah, because that shit was wild. It's like, because I don't know, up until that point, The Rock was not. I don't know if he was liked, but he was part of the NWO, and what was like kind of the consensus. Hogan. What was the consensus like at that up until that point? Like, he was not liked, right?
He was like, they were liked in the sense that they were NWO.
Yeah. So in the terms of the storyline, okay, because WCW had been gone for a few years at this point when he came back, and their contracts just finally ran out from WCW, from Turner having to pay them.
Yeah.
So once that happened, that opened the door for them to come in and do shit. So in terms of the storyline, Vince was pissed because of Ric Flair owned half the company at that point, because after the whole invasion angle with Shane and Stephanie, Ric Flair bought their shares of the WWF. So he owned like half the company, essentially, is how it was in the storyline. So Vince did not like that. So he was trying to get rid. He said he finally was like, the big promo was, he said, I'm gonna kill my own creation. I'm not gonna let somebody else kill it. I'm gonna do it. And so he says, I'm gonna inject a lethal dose of poison into the WWF. And then he's sitting in this chair. It's all black and white, the whole promo. And then he's like, I'm gonna kill the WWF, and he's like, yeah, and it's gonna be me. And then he turns around in the chair because you think you're looking at him the whole time, but it turns out you were looking at him in a mirror. And he turns around to actually face the camera, and then you see on the back of his chair it's written NWO, and he says, "Me and the NWO." And then they come out at, ironically, how funny, they come out at No Way Out 2002, and it's like NWO because it's No Way Out. So oh man, they fucking come out, and they come out to fucking thunderous applause. And
was that the No Way, like, did No Way Out involve? It was like a yield sign, and there was trucks. Yeah. Was that the one?
That was the one. Yeah, that's the one that was that pay-per-view setup. Right?
That's one thing that I miss, man. Is like set pieces for fucking each individual pay-per-view. It wasn't just one thing.
Cookie cutter.
Yeah. It's not the same as it looks on Raw. They just put on some fucking different graphics and then call it a day. Yeah, I do miss that, man. They used to have some good ones. But anyway, yeah. But back to that, yeah, he came out. He was. They were cheered, and then they literally said, "Oh, we're not here to kill the WWF." Blah blah blah. They started saying all this shit, and they were like, "We're here to make it better for you guys." Oh yeah. And then they literally started doing bad guy shit the whole rest of the night, and then slowly became the heel. And Hogan was booed constantly against The Rock everywhere, except when at WrestleMania when they got there. The Canadians love Hogan no matter what. Because it was in I think it was in Toronto. Was where 18 was. And they love fucking Hogan no matter what. They will always cheer him regardless of his status as a heel or a face. And that's what they did. They eventually, they knew that was going to happen though. So in the storyline, that's kind of how what happened. Hogan loses obviously. And then, everybody's, they're giving him the things about you still got it and all this other stuff, blah, blah, blah. And, then eventually the NWO turns on him the next week. And then.
So one thing I was kind of curious about
next
was
week they turned him in on that show.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, that same thing.
So one thing I was kind of curious about, like back then, is that they bought WCW wrestling, right? So they basically acquired all this talent, right? So
and did nothing.
Well, okay, so technically they didn't acquire any of the talent. So what they did was they purchased the tape library.
Okay.
And they purchased the licensing of everything, but they didn't purchase any of the contracts. So Turner was still required to pay all the wrestlers that were under contract. They were required to pay them out through their contracts. Now, if contracts were coming, that's why you saw some of these guys, and this is why the invasion angle was kind of whack, because a lot of those guys were under heavy, big contracts, and they were good for another 3 or 4 years. So there's no way they were going to come work for the WWF for less money. So they're just getting paid to stay at home because Turner was obligated to pay their contracts, and the WWF did not have to take them on. So the guys that didn't have big money contracts, those are the guys that went.
Okay, so
but anyways, yeah, go ahead.
The thing I was getting at was that because, like I said, I have a lapse of memory of all that shit, but there was no way that those guys, or like you wouldn't believe that those dudes that used to work for the enemy, were ever going to be pushed in like the main event scene, like for a majority of those guys, and it ended up being that like Chris Jericho was somebody that came from that and was able to go through the ranks. But
there's a lot of wrestlers that came from the ECW that were huge in the WWF, like like I said, Chris Jericho, Rey Mysterio, The Undertaker.
I guess I was just kind of. I guess the main thing being that I almost can't imagine like anybody coming up from that organization, because it's like, like it's like any business. When you get absorbed, like you're assuming you're just gonna get fired or whatever, and yet there was people that exceeded what they were gonna potentially do with them. Like if they were just, we'll try you out, like let's see what you can do for 6 months, and then if you don't do shit, then we'll fucking kick you to the curb. And I'm just kind of surprised that like people like Rey Mysterio, Chris Jericho, who else came through there? So Goldberg, I guess, to an extent.
So for guys like Mysterio,
I guess Ric Flair,
Jericho, I mean, Ric Flair was in the WWF. He was the WWF champion in the early 90s. So
I mean, WCW, like when...
No, he was in the WWF for a short stint.
Yeah.
But I mean, so he was there. He did work under them for a while. But the guys like Mysterio and the guys like Jericho came over obviously before the whole thing happened.
And what was his status like? What was his status like in WCW, was he a mid-carder and then he became fucking main event material like when he debuted on Raw? Or they just looked at him and they're like, you kind of got something going, man. Like we're gonna have you cut a promo against the fucking Rock. Like,
well, in WCW, he was just being underutilized. I felt like he was just a mid-card jobber essentially, and he started bucking the system by cutting better promos. That was how he was getting noticed, because they weren't really giving him much match time. So he just started fucking cutting promos and doing really good on the mic. And so I think when he made the jump to WWF, that's when they said, oh shit, like this guy's good at doing the mic work. Why don't we put him against The Rock? Because we don't really have many people that can kind of go toe to toe with him. And obviously that opening promo of his was fucking great against The Rock. I mean, shit, man, to debut against The Rock, man, that's fucking...
It wasn't even just that. Like, it was the fucking countdown that was wild.
Right. The whole hype behind him and everything. Yeah, that was a cool fucking way to introduce him. You know, because it was the year two, it was Y2K. And,
everybody's scared.
Yep, he's Y2J, so who knows what the fuck the countdown is going to be. That was a cool little gimmick, I thought, that they had. But yeah, when he was in WCW, I mean, he was just like a mid-card kind of jobber that they weren't really utilizing him for much. And for eventually then for him to become the first undisputed champion after all this, is said and done, I mean, that's pretty fucking wild. Well,
it would make sense that it had to be someone like him that jumped ship to hold both titles.
Well, think about it though. Who were the two people that he went against? It was The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Those were the three guys that were in the running to be this new undisputed champion after the whole invasion angle ended. And you would think that the obvious choice would have been either The Rock or Stone Cold, because, oh yeah, they've been WWF stalwarts this whole time, fucking for many years. I mean, The Rock especially, he's only been in the WWF. Yeah, Stone Cold was in WCW back in the day, but they became fucking famous.
What was his name? Stunning Steve?
He was Stunning Steve whatever. Something, yeah, I don't know. And then he was part of the Hollywood Blondes with fucking Brian Pillman.
Yeah, that shit was wild, dude. Like, you see pictures of him with hair, it's like...
Yeah, man,
that looks weird.
It does, man. It does look weird.
You remember his crazy face when he was doing promos in the basement for ECW? That's all he did. Man. He just did like 3 promos for ECW, and that's it.
And then he got picked up by the WWF, yeah. But, yeah, yeah, you're right. It did have to be somebody like that was in both sides to be able to truly be, oh, yeah, I am the first ever undisputed, champion or whatever.
You know what else is wild? Just talking about things that I don't know if it's unlikely stories, but it's interesting for Eric Bischoff to be like down the road and to end up becoming part of Raw, to be the manager, like the general manager. That was fucking sweet. I love that dude's theme song. Also, Paul Heyman being somebody that was doing commentary for, like, along with Jim Ross.
Yeah.
And then eventually becoming he was a manager at one point, right?
Yeah.
And then he became general manager of SmackDown, and then, he had the whole thing with Brock Lesnar and, of course, like Roman Reigns. But that's somebody that came from a failing company that ended up working for Vince McMahon. Like, that guy was out of a job. Like,
oh, yeah.
ECW went under, and for him to be in the creative division of WWE itself, like that's something cool, like that ended up happening for him when he probably thought he was like, well, this is the end of me, like, altogether.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that is interesting about that whole aspect, or the whole story of ECW and Paul Heyman is, Paul Heyman was great at fucking telling stories, and that's how he. So, yeah, maybe he wasn't so good at running a business because obviously of the way they went out. But at the end of the day, if he could tell good stories and the WWF recognized it. And what's funny, too, is ECW, he got in with the WWF in the late 90s, in like 97, 98. They were doing crossovers from whenever they would go to Philly or that general Pennsylvania area.
Yeah.
They'd have ECW guys would run in and they'd do little things with them. And Vince was doing it to try to kind of help him out a little bit, because they were no threat to him, and he wanted to give them a little publicity. And they sent Jerry Lawler down to ECW pay-per-views and shit to do, to fuck around and do shit with them. And that was kind of cool to see. Like, oh yeah, man, like, you're not just some heartless fucking corporation, that you're actually here trying to help out the little guy. And Paul
Heyman was no fucking don't want to say he wasn't a slouch in like wrestling, because I was listening to an interview with him, and from a young age he was already working within the music, or not the music, the wrestling business itself. Like from, I guess he was involved with the Hawaii family, basically like the Rock Romans family and all that shit from way back in the day, and obviously like working his way up until what he was doing now. But somebody that was already interested in wrestling at a young age and had his experience at a young age as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's very interesting. And then there's a, I don't know if it's still around, but it was a DVD back at the time. It was the Rise and Fall VCW, and man, it is one of the better. I mean, the WWE puts on good fucking documentary type shit, but that is one of the best ones I've seen of ECW. And Paul Heyman is in it too, and he goes on to talk about all kinds of stuff. And I learned a lot about just the wrestling business in general just from watching that, and kind of how to apply some of those lessons that he learned to everyday stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy to think about, man. Paul Heyman is a genius. He is one of those genius type dudes when it comes to wrestling creative. It was just unfortunate that he didn't run a business so good. So that's.
I mean, it didn't work out bad for him either.
No, I mean he came out ahead. In the end of the day, and quite frankly, a lot of the guys that worked for him that he got fucked in the end. I mean, they ended up coming out ahead too, because a lot of those guys he helped get into WWE when he went over there. So I mean, eventually, guys kind of made out. I'm sure there's always some dudes that got fucked and just will never forgive it, but. Hey, Paul Heyman, if he can do one thing good, it's fucking. He can come up with some good stories and shit.
Yeah. So one thing that I've been thinking about recently, that I mentioned to you earlier, was that AEW has been doing post media scrums, and I think it's good that AEW has been in the mix for like a minute for the last 5 years? Or more?
Something like that.
Because. Competition creates creativity or originality, right?
Right.
And that was the case with like the Monday Night Wars with the WCW and Raw. So something that AEW has been doing that resulted in great shit, like the CM Punk meme with him working with fucking children, and the baked goods, like that was all that all came out of like the post media scrum, right?
Right. Yeah.
So then WWE wasn't doing that shit at all. But it took AEW to do something like that to get the WWE to start incorporating that in their content as well. So it's like it's just good for the business itself, for like the wrestling industry itself, to have multiple fucking things, because WWE itself doesn't have any motivation to fucking innovate or do anything that's cool unless somebody else pushes the envelope. And that's where I think AEW has come into the fold to... I mean, do they do things perfect? No, I don't think so. But, hey, they're a close second that is pushing the envelope as far as like wrestling goes.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that over the last 20 years, the WWE's kind of become... lackadaisical, and they've been lazy. They haven't needed to create new shit or do anything crazy, because they're the only game in town, right, for the last 20 years. So, and now they've been bought by fucking, what is it, whoever the fuck owns the UFC, or whatever that deal is.
Yeah, I don't remember what the merger between UFC and WWE. Yeah,
right. Yeah, but now that's gonna happen. So now they're gonna be pressed even harder to, hey, we need to get some profits now. We just paid $4 billion or whatever the fuck they paid, $10 billion. Yeah. We need to get some money back. So now you guys got to start pushing the limits here and doing shit. And I think we're going to see a lot of good things come out of that, in the sense of it's been just Vince making the decisions. Now it's,
it's like
there's someone over him now.
Yeah.
He has to report to someone. So if shit's not working, they're gonna be like, "Hey, man, you need to fucking do something about this."
I don't know what you think about this, but now that there's one company, right, for these two things that exist, do you think? And I don't know if like we're in the PG era or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
But do you think there's going to be crossovers of wrestlers going into like UFC, maybe not so much. How do I word it? Like, if there is a UFC fighter that had a slight interest in even crossing over to like the WWE, you start like teasing things like that by having somebody else from like the WWE showing up to like instigate the fucking dude into coming over, like those crossover moments, like things like that.
They did that with Lesnar.
Huh?
They did that with Lesnar.
Well, Undertaker went to his pay-per-view like event
issued a challenge
to issue a challenge. Like, I wonder if we'll be seeing more things like that. And I also wonder, since UFC also has moments where like they interview people and it's not something that's filtered, if like, does that mean that the WWE is going to loosen up on some of the things that they're doing too? Like, they're not like the language that was is it within the programming. Like,
well, we also got to remember they're under a new ownership now. They're not owned by Vince anymore. He's in charge of them, but there's somebody above him giving him orders now.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking though. Like, what do you think that means for the programming for years to come? Like,
I think Vince was the poison of the WWE for the last 10 years.
Yeah,
everything Triple H touched showed, because what had Triple H's influence versus what had Vince's influence, there was it was night and fucking day.
All right, so there's an argument against that right now, that everybody's kind of against Triple H, or there's a developing within the communities of fandom for wrestling.
Yeah,
there's things going on that people are saying, oh, Triple H fucking cut Trish Stratus and Becky Lynch from SummerSlam for the Battle Royale, and that pissed a lot of people off because they're saying that the women aren't nearly as important to the main event picture, or even just like wrestling in general within like the WWE.
Wait. So they're saying that Triple H was sexist for what he did to those two women.
I don't know if it was sexist. It's just that.
Well, that's the message you're giving out right now, saying that.
I don't know if it's sexist. I'm just saying that
because it's women and all that stuff. But no, my get is that's the image I'm getting from you from what people are saying.
Yeah.
But everything Vince did to the women's division was okay. So all of this that Vince did, okay. Triple H did this. He's ruining WWE.
Well, I guess the problem was that they were building some type of story leading into SummerSlam, and then for them to cut it was problematic.
Again, and Vince never did that.
Yeah.
Well,
that's tunnel vision. You're choosing. You're seeing something change in the WWE, and they're choosing to fight it every inch they get. So they're trying to telescope of what they don't like, and they're refusing to see it. That's how it was. That's how it's been in the old WWE as well.
Here's the other thing too, because the Battle Royale or whatever, because that was the match that LA Knight won, right?
Yes.
Okay, so they cut what would have likely been a lower tiered viewed match, right? In that
you don't think people would have interest in seeing Trish Stratus wrestle?
I mean, I would, but I don't know.
Because that's like icon versus icon, dude.
Yeah, but more so than the up and comers that we have going now.
So now you got
LA Knight is 40 years old. Like, dude, he's old.
Yeah, right. He is. Yeah, but he's
and they haven't shown
he's up and coming, right? So even though he's an old dude, let's just say within the WWE,
DDP was like 40 years old when he came into the business.
But they haven't shown that he's going to be part of the main event picture either.
Right, but again,
this would have been a great test for that.
I feel like there's maybe this is them setting it up. They're getting ready for that to start being. Maybe LA Knight's going to be the guy who fucking takes the belt off of Roman Reigns when it's time. Fucking, I don't know. Maybe he's the one that gets the push to do it. Maybe that's what they're potentially setting up. Obviously,
again, like that's what you have to do. You have to set it up subliminally, not superliminally, like the Simpsons said.
Well, yeah, it's you're setting it up to make it look fucking natural and organic, even though you're.
But
setting
then, what does that say about Trish Stratus
months.
and Becky Lynch that they were teasing this storyline for so many months, and then now it didn't happen?
So that's the thing.
In 5 years, do you see LA Knight still being able to perform the way he's performing right now?
Probably not.
Not at all. No chance.
I don't know, dude. Like, the guy, I don't know if he's like in his late 30s or beginning of his 40s. But
if Flair's taught us anything, age is a number.
Maybe. I mean, even Edge came back and he's like
in his 50s.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe people are just better athletes and there's better conditioning and better workout programs, better health programs to keep your body in shape, and maybe that's changed a lot.
So my second question is, in 5 years, do you think Trish Stratus and Becky Lynch can wrestle in the same division, in the same league. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's
because I like Trish Stratus. I love her. She was great but do you ever remember? The only time I ever remember her having memorable, I can't say that word.
Memorable
matches was against Lita. Everything else was either.
What about Mickie James and what's that other woman? Mickie James and.
You kind of proved my point where you can't even remember the person.
I remembered one that still counts.
Well, yeah, but I think that whole side of the argument's kind of even just irrelevant. I think that the main factor is okay. Becky Lynch. Well, no, I'm just saying Becky Lynch and fucking Trish Stratus, right? They've been teasing it for months. Okay, so what if let's tease it for another month? What's the difference? We're potentially going to set up. They're starting to potentially maybe set up something for WrestleMania of next year with LA Knight potentially. Okay, cool. This is the beginnings of it right here because that's how they do it. They start it in fucking the end, towards the end of the year before. So this is we're seeing the beginning. Time will tell. We'll know, and come next year's WrestleMania if I'm correct, but. This could be this could be the start of the push where he's going to be taking the title off of him at WrestleMania next year, or maybe even doing something, taking another title. Who the fuck knows? So they had to make a choice. All right, cool. We only got a certain amount of time. Let's drop this other match, and maybe there's another factor going into it that fucking we don't know about. Trish Stratus is also in her late 40s or mid 40s or whatever, right? So maybe wasn't up to it for now. Maybe she needed another month or two to do something. Maybe there was another extenuating. Becky Lynch is still coming off of having a baby. Maybe she fucking had something go down. Who the fuck knows? What other extenuating circumstance could have caused them to make this decision?
They could wait till the next
to cut.
They could wait till the next pay-per-view and have that match, and it will still draw the same attention because both of them's name is still big. But they're using this chance to try to create LA Knight to have a better name to get ready to get him to the next level.
But it doesn't seem the same to have a match at SummerSlam versus, say, No Mercy. Like, it doesn't come across the same.
Dude, honestly,
like the big four, like.
All right, think about this.
The Hallmark moments are in the top 4 pay-per-views, right? But then you push it onto No Mercy. You're saying that you don't value that thing the same as.
Again, we're not saying they're going to push it to that pay-per-view. We're just saying they're going to push it to another pay-per-view.
Right.
But at the same time, if I'm being honest, in the last couple of years, there's only been all the other red pay-per-views have been the fucking same, and then there's WrestleMania.
Right.
WrestleMania is the only one is the only one that matters. All the other pay-per-views are just
Royal Rumble, I guess you could say is.
Even then, there's no not glitz and glamour. There's no like
pageantry
to it. It's just, hey, these 40 guys are gonna wrestle. Okay, 10, 9, 8. Okay, the guy's out. Next guy's coming in. It's like there's no passion for this match anymore. The only time I see people get excited in wrestling these days is for WrestleMania. And again, talking WWE, not. It's for WrestleMania. So, to me, all the other pay-per-views are the same now. They're glorified Raw or SmackDown match to me.
I mean, there's a point. That is a valid point. But back to the thing you were saying about the Becky Lynch thing, right? And the Trish Stratus match. Look at it this way. How many other matches were on the SummerSlam card, and what were they, right? They were Jey Uso fighting Roman Reigns in the tribal combat or whatever match, right? Okay, it was Brock Lesnar versus fucking Cody Rhodes.
You're not cutting either of those two things.
Well, no, okay, but I'm getting to the point here. So you've got all these you got 3 or 4, maybe even 5 big time quote unquote matches, right? And you're gonna choose between these 2 maybe lower tier matches, okay? I think Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus deserves to be on a card that match will be remembered. I think that match should be on a card that maybe is kind of weak, and they need to up the game of that card. So like No Mercy, sure. This could be the start of they've been teasing this for months. This could just be, this is going to likely be just the first match in a feud. So to me, it doesn't really matter where it starts, but put it on a card that people are going to remember it more. I think that this card in general for SummerSlam had other shit on it where bigger things were happening, and I felt like that might have got lost in the shuffle. So that could have been a factor of saying, hey, let's pull this off. Let's dial this back. Let's do something to feature LA Knight because he's got nothing to do. We're going to be starting to push him here soon. Let's just make a battle royal. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
Remember Randy Orton versus Triple H? That match is fucking headliner. It was they built it up, but nobody gave a fuck about it after Undertaker versus fucking Shawn Michaels. So if you can have an amazing match, but if something else is greater, it's gonna drain the audience. So if you don't have, and if it's Trish Stratus versus Becky Lynch, Icon versus Icon again, like The Rock versus
right, yeah.
That needs its due, and if you put it against other matches of this caliber, it's not going to get its due.
I agree with Frank too. I do think that Trish Stratus versus Becky Lynch, that is the women's version of essentially
Hulk Hogan
and The Rock, right? That's what that is. So to me, I don't even think you should waste it on a pay-per-view that doesn't fucking start with Wrestle and end with fucking Mania. I mean, if you're going to do that match, let's build it up for a whole fucking year, and then let's do it right. Let's do it at the grandest stage of them all. Why waste it on fucking SummerSlam or the Royal Rumble?
Especially considering that WrestleMania is now a multi-day thing.
Because you have to sell the tickets to all year-round events, too. It's not just WrestleMania.
Yeah, but when every pay-per-view is no different than the Raw or SmackDown, you're not putting the production values into it. It's the same as selling a ticket to SmackDown or Raw. You're just selling it at a more expensive rate, and people are still buying it.
All right, here's the other thing.
All right,
a lot of people are bothered by the. Well, I kind of see it too. Certain people think that like Drew McIntyre.
Okay.
Drew McIntyre is somebody that's in the IC picture.
Yeah.
And he had his moments with like Roman that he ended up like the Clash at the Castle thing.
Yeah.
I mean, was anybody really convinced that Roman was going to drop the title to Drew McIntyre?
No, there's no way.
I'm like thinking, fuck, man, this guy like he was Triple H's fucking protege like when he came in, and now that they're back at it again, like they got a second chance with this dude, and they're doing the exact same thing. They're fucking throwing him to, I don't know if they're throwing him to the wolves, but like he's ended up almost irrelevant once more, like wasted potential once more.
Again, but that's the nature of the beast.
And that's what happens too. Also, when you have the situation that they're in with Roman Reigns being the champion for fucking 3.5 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And not to discount that or discredit it, but that's the problem you run into is now you're making the rest of your roster almost irrelevant because now they're just going to fight for lower fucking card titles, which definitely are not the same level of prestige as your world heavyweight title. And then bringing back that fucking title that they gave they put on Seth Rollins, not to discount Seth Rollins or anything, but I don't know, man. That title just doesn't fucking mean anything. To me, it just means, and I think I've said this before. It's just an advanced fucking intercontinental title. Like it's not a main title. The main title sits upon Roman Reigns, and that's it. Until somebody takes it off of him.
Are they trying to get him to beat Bruno Santino's record?
I think they said they were trying to get him to beat Hogan's record, and they want like once Hogan, because Hogan's, I don't know, still on the outs or whatever. They're trying to erase him from things. So. I think that's what they're trying to do. I'm not 100% sure. Because Bruno Sammartino, his fucking record was like 7 years. So like there's
4 or 5, something like that.
Yeah, there's no fucking way that Roman Reigns is going to... I mean, maybe there is a way. Especially though now with the way that the UFC and WWE are now owned by the same company, there's no way that they're going to let that go down. And okay.
You know what people are speculating is that Roman is going to hold the title for 1,400 days for the fact that they have to renew if they're going to have network television as where SmackDown's going to be placed, if they're going to make a deal with Fox once more, that they need to draw people. Because, again, people are speculating that after the fact the title goes to somebody else, that people aren't going to be interested
they're not going to give a fuck
about SmackDown. So in order to keep viewership up, Roman has to hold the title for a little bit longer, maybe a year or two, to the point that he surpasses Hulk Hogan, and also, again, for the fear that if they renew a contract with Fox, that they have to keep viewership up.
Right, yeah.
So they're going to keep the numbers up as long as Roman's champion.
And to kind of also tie in what you were saying earlier, the question earlier about how do we think this is going to affect the future with the UFC and the WWE? I think that if this company is smart that they're going to heavily push cross promotion between the two in terms of having guys from the WWE that want to go over and maybe fight a couple matches that are interested in doing that. They're going to fucking let them.
And it's gonna piss Dana White off because he hates the WWE.
Right, he does, but who gives a fuck? Because this is a smart business move. Because and Dana White as a businessman should fucking appreciate this, and I'm sure he will.
Get paid, yeah.
Right. Well, because it's gonna do is it's gonna provide legitimacy to the WWE, and it's going to get more exposure for the UFC to an audience that likes watching people fight, that has a very huge audience in this because of this PG area. It's got a younger audience that's going to grow up and become older.
That's a good point.
So they're going to naturally transition. If they see all these assholes coming from, who are these guys? They're from the UFC, because I'm sure it's going to be blasted on on the fucking banner when they walk out. I'm sure it's going to say UFC fighter so and so is going to come in there. They'll wrestle a couple of matches. They'll have some feuds with some people, some big names, and that's where this mid card talent. That's what they're going to be utilized for. That like your Drew McIntyres, your Sheamuses, your fucking. Seth Rollins your Finn Balor's, those guys are going to fight dudes that are within their technical weight class, like in real life. They're going to wrestle them in wrestling matches.
Yeah, like, and it'll be like, if they actually do get into the UFC, and I think it's kind of going to be the same thing that's happening with, is it like social media celebrities or kind of like the way Logan Paul joined.
Right. Yeah.
It'll be the same thing for wrestlers themselves to go, like the way CM Punk went to UFC and tried a couple fights.
Right.
It's gimmicky, it's weird, but you're like, you know what? I kind of want to see.
I want to watch it.
Yeah, I kind of want to see what Drew McIntyre is going to do in the ring.
Yeah, because you know what it's going to do? It's going to make, like I said, those wrestling fans, they're going to go over because they see those guys over here. They're going to go watch this. They're going to order this $75 fucking pay-per-view, and then you send a couple guys over from the UFC to have matches against dudes in the WWE on WWE programming. All those people are going to say, oh, well, shit, who are these guys? Maybe I want to watch these guys fight for real over here. Because, again, you got this, like, 10 to, like, 14-year-old or 8 to 14-year-old demographic that the WWE has, like, heavily been focusing on.
Yeah.
And over the last 10 years, now, guess what? All those kids are becoming 18 to 26 fucking in that adult demographic. And they're still watching the WWE. So you want to coax them into watching UFC. This is how you do it. Yeah. And it's honestly the company that paid, I think they paid, this is probably the best decision they've fucking ever made, because they're going to fucking increase the revenue from both of these companies probably a shit ton by cross branding them.
Yeah.
And they're going to make a fucking mint. I suspect within like 5 years they will have made back all the money they paid.
Money that they paid for it.
And maybe even then some. And everything after that's just going to be straight fucking profit.
Yeah.
Especially if they get that new deal with Fox, if they re-up that, I mean, that's $1 billion deal right there in itself, right?
Yeah, well, even like just for the example of like Drew McIntyre being a dude that's fucking massive, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
What if he actually finds out that he can fight?
That's another thing too. Then you're giving an opportunity for, okay, cool, these guys can come on WWE programming. They can wrestle a few matches. They can train. It's the perfect schedule to fucking do the UFC. You only fight twice a year, maybe 3 times a year at most. If you're an undercard guy and you're trying to move up. You fight 2-3 times a year, and you do the rest of your shit on the WWE programming on the road. I mean, fuck, man, you're making a name for yourself and making even more money.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good opportunity for everyone involved, and especially with the way that the WWE in the past has treated its wrestlers as independent contractors and kind of told them to fuck off. I think this sort of kind of will give them a little better, money making,
like stable check or whatever.
Right, yeah, because you got these guys that maybe don't get featured on the 18 hours of television that WWE has a week to begin with, and hey, guys like I don't know, Dolph Ziggler or fucking I don't know if Tyler Breeze is still, or Fandango. I don't know if those assholes are still around in here, but I haven't seen them on TV in a while. So
yeah, they could be like personalities or something,
right?
Like just somebody that's an expert within the wrestling brand, but like explain it to people and shit. Yeah.
You got guys like that who know how to talk on the microphone, and you can fucking put them doing any kind of fucking work over there in front of a camera. Have them just cut promos. Have them fucking be a fucking manager for somebody, and there's all kinds of shit you could do with that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they would do fucking very well at it. So yeah, I think the future for pro wrestling in general, I think it looks bright because all these things that the WWE is going to be doing with the UFC, more than likely, it's going to propel AEW to have to do what? They're going to have to innovate too to get people to come watch their shit. And then, like you said, with the media scrum thing, okay, so AEW innovated that. Now the WWE's copying it. Now WWE's probably going to end up doing it better just because they fucking have
they know how to do it. Like,
they're the machine.
They are the machine, yeah.
They're going to take what they did and do it even better. And that's cool because then guess what? AEW's going to have to come up with some new fucking fandangled shit. And they're going to say, hey, let me do this. Let me do that. Oh, cool. The WWE will take it, make it better, and copy it and make it even better. I don't know. So either way, it's going to provide hopefully some good opportunities for everybody, and it's going to provide good entertainment for all of us who sit here and watch it. So
yeah, I think this is a good spot to end.
I think so. Frank, you got anything else to say? You look like you're about to die. So anyways, all right. Well, this was the redo of the first episode. So thank you. The next 4 episodes, 2 through 5, we recorded before this several weeks. So we may have repeated some things that we've said. So just know going forward from episode 5 on, it's going to be every time we record it, it's coming out that same day or the next day after. So
yeah, those topics are also like insulated from one another. So like anything we talk about, it doesn't carry over to the next thing. So it's like you can just enjoy each thing individually.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to put it, Adam. So anyways, so thanks again for listening, and hopefully we'll see you around for several other episodes, and that's about it. All right, thanks.
That was another wonderful, amazing, powerful episode of the Game Rage Wrasslin podcast. And take it from me, ladies and gentlemen, the natural lad, Jet Swag. If there's one podcast, one show you should be listening to, that you should be absolutely grateful for, it's the Game Rage Wrasslin podcast. And one of the things you can do to show your appreciation for all the hard work and dedication that these boys put out day in, day out, just for you people, it's that you can go and you can subscribe and you can like and follow them on the Instagram and the TikTok at Game Rage Magazine. You can also follow them and like them and subscribe to them on the old Twitter, which I don't know what it's called now, but who cares? It's at Game Rage Mag there. Additionally, if you feel the need to really show your appreciation, which you should, then go to their website at www.GameRageMagazine.com and show us some love. Show them some love. And show some love for the natural lad, Jet Swag.